Thank you, Mr. Perry, and thank you so much for having us here tonight. I will tell you that I've told both John Frullo and Mr. Perry both that, you know, once upon a time I actually had the honor and privilege to be a lobbyist in Austin. I lobbied for Texas Public Schools for 2 regular sessions and 4 special sessions. And many of you I know stay involved, and that I like to see many more citizens involved, because that's a very interesting process at the state level. But through that process, I learned to truly, very deeply respect individuals who are willing to serve in public office, because the time, the energy, the effort that it takes to do that and do it well. So I really commend them both, and my entire team and myself are staying ready to help them any way we can to get ready for a pretty tough session. I know you have one election in the middle of that, but I know tough sessions around the corner. Some additional individuals who serve in public office that also put an enormous amount of time, volunteer time, into serving this community. That's our Board of Trustees, and we have several of them here with us tonight. I'd like to introduce them. We have Steve Messingale, who's the Vice President of our Board of Trustees, and probably everyone in the room knows Steve. And then we have Melissa Collier. Melissa Collier is a new member of our Board of Trustees, but she's been involved for many months and has followed the work of the board, and so she was the most well-prepared new board member I think I've ever seen, and they both did a tremendous job. And then I'm also joined by members of our 2020 committee. I'll introduce some of them in just a little bit. And then some of my team, Nancy Sharp, Director of our Communications, and then Dr. Burl Robertson, Chief Administrative Officer in the district. We do really appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about this past year, kind of this work that we've engaged in the development of a long-range facility plan. I'm going to talk about some of the background or foundation pieces, and then I'll ask the chairs of our 2020 committee to come up and talk with you about the elements of their recommendation, which they made their formal recommendation to the board last Friday morning. And so a little bit of change probably from what you read in the paper, but largely big pieces of it are about the same. But they'll talk through all of those in just a little bit. But I do agree with Mr. Perry and others and Mr. Galloway. It's really important, and it's incumbent upon us to ensure that our taxpayers, our voters in this community have all the information they need to make a good decision when it comes right down to having to consider a bond election. And so we will work very hard to ensure that you have all your questions answered tonight, and as we engage more deeply in this process over the next 60-something days. Is it 72 days? Someone said 72 days. We stand ready to ensure that you have whatever information you need so that you can make the decisions you need to make. I've been in the district well over a year now, and well over a year ago we began the process of developing a long-range facility plan. When you have as many facilities as we do, it's not sufficient just to look at what our needs are today. But when you have as many buildings as we have, we need to know what our needs are today, but we also need to be looking down the road a little bit to know what our needs might be in another 5 years or 10 years, so that we have a very thoughtful plan for ensuring that all of our buildings, all of our facilities are in good condition. And we don't have any buildings that, we've got to protect the taxpayer investment in our buildings. And so that takes the short view, but it also takes the long view. We begin that process by first conducting a comprehensive analysis of every building in the district. We started that, and it's never been done in the district before. And so we have a detailed analysis of every building. I can tell you, if you ask me about any school, I can tell you the condition of its air conditioning system. I can tell you how much it's going to cost to replace it, should it need to be replaced. I can tell you about the cost of plumbing system issues, if there are those at a particular school. So we have all of that background work, and in fact, it's a binder about that thick. And when we convened the facilities committee in January, we actually gave them that analysis, so they know where the condition of every building in the district. Now, I will tell you that 60% of our buildings are 50 years or older. So you can imagine, it's kind of like your home. If you have a little bit older home, just there are times when the air conditioner doesn't last, just won't work any longer, or a roof that needs to be replaced, or electrical system that might be replaced. So that's what we have to look at when we have buildings that are older. So we begin that process. We also did a comprehensive demographic analysis, because that's important as well. Shifting patterns, where kids live, where they're going to school, transfers in, transfers out. Because I know that this community would expect for us to to take that into consideration when we look at continued investment in facilities. Are we going to have long-term students in those areas? Because that's very important to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are really being put in a place that will really serve us well for many years to come. With those two pieces in place, the Board of Trustees identified 3 to 4 people per person, per district, per area. So in January, we convened what we call our 2020 long-range facility plan, representing every aspect of this community. They're tremendous community leaders, put a lot of time and energy in this plan. In fact, in many cases, we met on a weekly basis, and they really worked hard to prioritize and develop a long-range plan for the district. It got very difficult because they realized we have tremendous needs. We also took them on tours of our facilities so they could see for themselves the condition of different facilities, and we thought that was also important. It's one thing to show it on paper, it's yet another thing to see it with your own eyes. And so they spent a lot of time on tours of the district. We can go on to the next slide. I will tell you on this one though, we do expect for the Board of Trustees to call for an election tomorrow morning. If we in fact have a successful election, one thing that we will be establishing is a bond oversight committee. And that will be a group of citizens that are highly regarded throughout the community that will be meeting with us on a periodic basis, no less than quarterly, to assess, are we moving forward with these projects? Are we fulfilling our promises to the community? And we think that's going to be really important because in another 5 years, 4 or 5 years, if in fact we ask the community to consider yet another phase of a bond, we need for the community to feel good that we did what we said we would do and that they followed us all along the way, not just a report at the end. And so I think that there's some similar examples, I think, in other places. We think that will make a difference. I'm going to have to bore you just a little bit with school finance, and many of you in this room, I think, are experts at this. But this is a big part of why we're having to make some of the tough decisions that we're making as a district. We have two major sources of funds that we use to run the school system. One's called our maintenance operations tax, and the other's called our interest and sinking tax. So it's just 2 pots of money. We don't have fees and dues and other things like that we charge. It's just literally these 2 pots of money that we have to run the school district. On the maintenance operations side, which is listed at the top, that's the money we use to operate our schools. And technically, it's just whatever it takes to open the doors of our schools every day. That's the money we have to operate our schools, whether that's cafeteria service, custodial services, teachers, instructional programs, library books. Everything has to be paid for out of the maintenance and operations tax, which is listed at the top. You'll see that we're at $1.04 on the M&O side. We have the lowest M&O tax rate in the entire county. No one's lower than us at $1.04. But you'll also see over on the right-hand side, we've been essentially capped at the revenue we were spending per student in 2005-06. So since that time, we've not experienced any increase in revenue. There have been a slight adjustment here and there. For example, I think it was 05-06, yes, to 06-07, that shows an increase, but that was the $2,500 per teacher salary increase that was mandated by the legislature at that time. So it was not new revenue to school districts, it was a flow through to teachers. And so that's why it shows an increase. But you'll see over time that we've not had an increase in revenue. In fact, if you'll look at this year's, we've actually experienced a little over $2 million reduction in revenue available to us than we had in the previous year. So with all of that being said, if we want to raise teacher salaries, or we want to add programs, or we want to do anything different in our schools, we have to cut somewhere in order to find the money to do that. So this year we gave a teacher salary increase. It was actually a salary increase for all of our employees. It was different for administrators than it was for teachers. But we did give a salary increase. In order to accomplish that, we had to reduce 185 positions throughout the district through attrition. Because we wouldn't have any, as you can see, we wouldn't have any additional revenue for salary increases if we wanted to do it without making cuts. In addition to that, the Board of Trustees approved the closure of 4 Head Start centers. You may have read a little bit about that this year. We moved those programs into space where we had schools with empty classrooms. So what we did is we closed those programs on separate campuses, moved them into schools where we have extra space. And today, in fact, we well over 300 more pre-K students that we're serving than we even did last year. So it just goes to show you, get the programs closer